guys, welcome back to Delicate Moments Custom Dresses. My name's Steph. We're using a few different patterns today because I wanted a different look to what the original pattern could give me. So I'm using a different skirt and different sleeves, and then the bodice is also a separate pattern too. So it's a full mix and match. Hopefully everything is going to come together.
Do you believe in magic? Delicate moments.
I've got all the pattern pieces cut out ready to go. We're going to be making a lovely dress. I'm not too sure on how it's going to go this time because I am using block colours. Now it is only a nice soft colour, but using block colours doesn't always work, but I think it's worth the risk with this fabric. Let's get started. We're going to be starting with the ruffles. So we've got two sets of ruffles, a thicker one and a thinner one. And we've got two pieces to each. We just need to cut down the centre of one piece. We're just going to match them up right sides together. So then we've got a longer piece on the inside and then two shorter pieces on the edges.
Saw it clear before it had a shape. Just a thought I knew I couldn't shake. Didn't wait, didn't hesitate.
So now we have both our larger ruffle and smaller ruffle ready. We're just going to place the smaller ruffle on top of the larger ruffle, and I'm just going to match them up at the seams that we made. And then I'm going to sew a gathering stitch all along the top, and then we're going to set that to one side and move on to the body. So now that's both of the ruffles attached together and we've got the gathering stitches in. Now I'm looking at the fabric. I think we've made the right choice going with a soft pink because it matches the floral really well. So that's our ruffle. We're going to set that to one side. We're now moving on to the bodice. So we're going to attach the lining, we're going to attach the bib, and we're also going to attach the main bodice. So we now have each bodice piece connected. We're going to move on to the ruffle. So the ruffle is going around the bib. So we're going to get our ruffle and we're just going to gather that. I'm going to be super careful with the threads because it's two pieces of material I'm gathering at the same time. Okay, now that ruffle is all clipped in place, I'm going to sew around the edge. So we now have our ruffle attached. I'm just going to take out the stitches that are going to be visible. So this is now our ruffle. So I'm going to join the bodice main and the bib. I'm going to place them top of each other. Flip that in place. I'll sew a temporary strip stitch. I will sew a temporary stitch in place. So last night I was actually thinking, how can I make this something a little bit better? I'm going to be putting a bow on it, so I've ordered some fabric and it's due to come today or tomorrow, so we're waiting on that. Before we complete the bodice, we're going to move on to the sleeves and hopefully the fabric will arise before we need to focus on the bodice again. So we've got our two sleeve pieces. First of all, I'm just going to sew and I'm gathering stitches in. So the reason I chose to swap the pattern for a different sleeve is I wanted to add some trim on. I just think it'll give the dress a really nice vintage feel. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to attach that to here. So what I need to do first is divide this elastic into 4 sections, and then I'm going to do exactly the same on this line here. I need to divide that into 4 sections. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this elastic, I'm going to sew it down and stretch it so then the lines match up from the elastic onto the sleeve, and then I'll sew that in place. So now the elastic is in both sleeves, I'm just going to place them right sides together and sew down the side. So now we need to hem the sleeve. I'm just going to fold it over 1/4 of an inch, and then another 1/4 of an inch. Now you can see the shape of the sleeve. It is absolutely adorable. So we've got our 2 skirt pieces and our placket. We're just going to add our placket to the back of the skirt. So I just need to make a line 2.5 inches down and 2 diagonal lines going off that. It's my pen. So we're now left with a W. Now we're just going to add our placket and sew that in place. So that's our back skirt piece. Placket. I'm just going to place the front skirt piece on top of here. We're going to cut that in place and then sew down the side. So before I sew that, I'm just going to attach the ruffle pieces together so then I can serge them all at the same time. So these are our ruffle pieces in the gorgeous pink. Now this is the bit that I'm hoping is going to look okay with the skirt, because if it turns out how it does in the head, it's going to look stunning. But I'm just a bit worried about the block colour against the pattern. But we won't know until we've tried it, so I'm going to give it a try. So I'm just putting these ruffle pieces together as one continuous loop. And I'm just going to join the loop up and sew that in place. Okay, now we've got all the hem pressed in place, we're just going to sew that to secure the hem. And then I'm going to sew my gathering stitches all across the top of the ruffle. Okay, so that's now the skirt complete until it's ready to be attached. So we're going to set that to one side and we're going to cut our bow. Now I'm just going to sew along the edges and down the point. Okay, so now I'm just going to create a pleat. So I'm just going to draw a line about 1, 2, 2.5 in, and I'll sew down that line. Here we have our pleat. I'm just going to do the same to the other piece. Okay, so now we're going to be moving back onto the body. So here's the bodice that I was working on earlier. We need to baste our bows onto the side. Okay, we've got both of the bows basted on. Now we need to attach our lining. now going to trim that seam allowance, and then I'm going to cut the corners, flip it right side down. So now we need to make the armholes. Okay, now the bodice is complete, we're going to be putting the sleeves in. So we're going to turn the bodice inside out, sorry. We're going to make sure that sleeve is well out the way. Okay, so now I'm going to sew that in place. I'm going to sew very slowly because I don't want to be getting this ruffle when I'm attaching the sleeve. So, the last couple of dresses, I've had a few problems with the top buttonhole because it's not quite even. So I'm going to give this stabiliser a go. So, the tearaway stabiliser, so you just sew your buttonhole over the top. So I'm going to give it a go. It might not go right, but it might be the solution to my problems. So let's give it a try. A little bit nervous about this. So it didn't quite work out how I planned. I'm going to try and go over it and see if I can get that a little bit neater. Yeah, that is much better. So I do think on the top buttonhole, I'm going to start using this stabiliser. So apparently, if you just pull, so there we have it, 3 buttonholes. So now we're going to gather the skirt to the same width as the bodice. So now we have our skirt gathered. I'm going to turn it inside out and place the bodice inside of the skirt. We're going to pin that in place and then sew it. And now we need to mark where our buttons are going to go. So we're just going to lay the dress flat. So this is the final dress. I am really pleased with how it turned out. I was a little bit worried about the bottom ruffle being a different colour, but I think it complements the skirt really well. The details in this skirt are absolutely stunning. It looks as if it's got like a chain of daisies around the bottom of the skirt, which is just absolutely gorgeous. We've got the puff sleeves, the bib that just gives it such a vintage feel. The back, we've got the complementing buttons and the bib goes all the way around. And then we've got a beautiful big pink bow. Again, the skirt has got so much detail in it. So yeah, I had nothing to worry about with the ruffle trim. I think it's turned out absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see my little girl in this. So overall, it was a really easy sew. This is actually one of my favourite dresses. I do say that about them all when I've made them, but I think this is up there with the top favourites. So thank you so much for watching. I do release a video every Monday, so make sure you're subscribing so you don't miss any of them videos. I'm going to leave you with some glamour shots now. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
stitched with love. Little dreams fit like a glove. Moments fade, but threads remain, sewn in memory, joy